A warm welcome to Lost for Words, a podcast sharing the opinions, glories and interesting stories of guests. I am your host Jason, and for episode 19 I am joined by Sharne Wood. Sharne Wood is an 18-year-old sixth form student who is headed to university after the summer holidays. When she was 15, Sharne was diagnosed with Aplastic Anaemia, a rare blood condition which leaves her immunocompromised. As such, the coronavirus pandemic represents a grave threat to the health of Sharne and other aplastic anemia sufferers. Sharne has been supported by the leading blood cancer charity Anthony Nolan, and she penned a letter detailing her lockdown experience. This letter, as well as Sharne herself, were both featured on Sky News. Sharne discusses her blood condition, the travails of lockdown, and why, even despite the reopening of the economy, going back out into the world may remain too dangerous for her. Sharne also discusses in detail the amazing work of Anthony Nolan and how people can help by donating stem cells. A quick housekeeping note before we get started. Please leave a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts, whether that be Apple, Google, Spotify, Podbean or any other platform. It's the best way the podcast can grow and better content can be produced for you, the listener. It's your listening experience that matters the most. But enough from me, now on to today's episode of Lost for Words.
Hi!
Hi, how are you? You alright?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. What have you been doing today?
What have I done today? I think the most I've done is go to the co-op. Yeah, not a lot.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Right, we'll just get started then. I'm aware of the time. I don't want to keep you any longer. It's time's going on. Right, just smash on then. Go back to the beginning. That's where I like to start. Tell me a little bit about where you grew up.
Okay, so I grew up in a city in England called Stoke-on-Trent. It's a very small industrial city. There's not a lot going on, not a lot of jobs, not a lot of money in the area, but the people are nice and we'll stick together. Yeah, so it's a nice place to live. I like it a lot.
How would you describe your childhood?
My childhood was, for the most part, quite happy. I had a lot of time playing with my grandparents in the country, doing childlike things, reading in the gardens. Had really nice times. I had a good childhood, pretty much.
Good, so here to talk mainly about the blood disorder and how that's led into your letter being featured on Sky News. We'll just start with the blood disorder then. What is the blood disorder and when were you diagnosed?
So I've got anemia, which is a lack of red blood cells and low iron in the blood circulation system. I was diagnosed in 2018, so I was 15 then.
And you're what, 18 now, is that right?
Yeah, I'm 18.
Right, so last 3 years of your life then, what have the symptoms been like for you?
Yeah, so they vary day to day, but it's things like nausea, dizziness, fainting. Sometimes if it gets particularly bad, sometimes you are actually sick repeatedly, which isn't nice. Can go on for up to an hour. It can be things like pins and needles all in your arms and legs. Those sorts of symptoms, really, the headaches, migraines, that sort of thing.
And how are they brought under control? Is there medication for that, or is it just a case of managing it?
For a little while, I managed to sort of get by, but it got to a point where it was just sort of too much, and I got prescribed some tablets from GP sort of to boost my iron. It's like a supplement, and they do help a little bit, but it's really a lot more than that. There can be like changes to your diet that can help, but still it's not a complete cure or like an ultimate fix or anything. It's just sort of things to sort of ease it along and make it a little bit more manageable, but it's never completely gone. Obviously, you do have your good days, but yeah.
As you get older, do you think that being diagnosed with that when you're 15, obviously at age 15,
Yeah.
there's a lot of changes happening in your body at that time. So as you've gotten older, has it become more manageable?
I would say so. Obviously, it's not easy, but I do think that I deal with it a lot better than I did when I first got diagnosed, because obviously I was 15 and well, it was really new to me and I didn't really know what was going on. It was quite a frightening time, actually. But it's definitely got easier to deal with. But that isn't to say that it is easy to deal with, if that makes sense. It's just on a better scale than it was when I first got diagnosed. So, yeah.
Of course, and as you become an adult, or as you keep getting older, will there be any long-term implications, or is this it forever?
I think the state that I am with it right now is kind of just how it's going to be. I have been given sort of, kind of hope that for the future it will kind of lessen off, which is obviously good. But I think for the meantime, this is just me. And I guess, obviously, that doesn't sound great to somebody listening in, but it's because I've been living with it now for 3 years. I guess I've just sort of learned to live with it. And yeah, my quality of life is still reasonably good.
Good. And what would you say, how did your family help you with it, if at all? Or was it just a case of you having to deal with your own new reality?
Well, they were really good about it, actually. So obviously I lived at home with my mum, and she did take on a bulk of new thought processes, I guess, into how to best cater to my needs. So things like when my symptoms would be particularly bad, she would be there and she would be sort of right on hand to deal with them as I did. If ever I needed, painkillers or a sit down wherever we were, she was always there to help, and she didn't get annoyed or sort of irritable with my symptoms and my condition, because obviously it's not my fault and I wouldn't choose to have it. But she was very helpful in particular.
Yeah, I would hope that nobody would choose to go through that. That would be
God, no.
Talk about shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
And then just to round off this wee part, what would you say to anybody who was of a similar age, now that you're a bit older? What would you say to a 15-year-old that has just been diagnosed? What would your advice be?
I would say, what would I say? I would say to look, obviously to keep in regular contact with your GP, and to sort of fight your way through for the best kind of treatment options that you can get. Don't let anybody sort of sideline you, sort of, what's best for you. And I think it's really important, because a lot of the time we do sort of put our own needs in the back seat. But with something like this, you can't do that. So I think my advice would be to really research what can be done for somebody with a condition like this, and talk about it with the medical professionals that you're in contact with. Really ensure that you do get the best treatment possible, whether that be medication or something like a stem cell transplant, whatever it is that you need. Go out and seek it and put yourself first. That's really important, actually, because the symptoms can be really debilitating, and if you don't kind of find the time to be a little bit selfish sometimes, you will find yourself really struggling, because the symptoms can really pull you back. So yeah, I guess that would be my advice.
Amazing. And then I forgot to mention this at first, how were you diagnosed in the first place? What was the process that got you to that point?
So I was experiencing a range of symptoms, really. I would have really heavy blood loss, so I would have crazy nosebleeds. like out of nowhere. And I just came to think, oh, this is just me. But when they started to be accompanied with things like migraines and dizzy spells, it got a bit like, this needs to be, let's have a look at this. So just went to the doctor, they did a blood test, and then they called me back in about 3 days later, and they just said, oh, well, we've found that you're anemic. And obviously I didn't really know what that was, but talking to people I remember at school, I found out that it's not actually that rare, and it is particularly common in young women. So yeah, that was a little bit of a weight off my shoulders, but that was basically the process that led to me being diagnosed.
No, thank you. So you've been diagnosed, you've been living with aplastic anemia, for 3 years. Recently you have started volunteering with Anthony Nolan.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, or tell the listeners, for anybody who doesn't know about Anthony Nolan, what /who are Anthony Nolan?
Yeah, so Anthony Nolan are a blood cancer and blood disorder support charity. They actually have a register which you can sign up to, and they correlate your details with anybody they've got on their system, or anybody that's sort of clientele essentially of theirs. So anybody suffering with blood cancer or blood disorder, if you come up as a match, you can go into one of their specialist clinics. They're sort of up and down the country. There's a few in Manchester and London. I think there's a few up right up the north as well, where you can go and have some blood taken from you, and they use the cells for stem cell transplant purposes. The procedures vary from really simple, quick things like taking a bit of blood to general anaesthetic procedures that are a bit more serious, but they're a bit more rare. So that's the kind of thing that we do. And obviously it's just about saving the lives of people that live with blood cancers and helping people with blood disorders live their everyday lives a little bit more fully.
Did they give you any support when you were going through the sort of the early years of your blood disorder?
Well, I didn't actually know about them. I think my mum went researching like support for people with blood disorders, and she came across them online, and we had a look into it and noticed all the good work they've been doing for people that suffer with blood cancer and blood disorders. So obviously we got into contact with them, and they were really good. Like, they have a helpline service, and really reassuring about obviously what it's like to live with such a debilitating illness that is quite lifelong, really. The people that they have working for them are brilliant, very helpful, very considerate, and definitely the sort of people that you want working for a charity that is in the centre of such a serious sort of collection of illnesses. So but no, they are very good. I'm biased, but they are very good.
If you find a match with someone, what then happens after that?
So if you if somebody matches with you, what happens is they get contacted and they're asked, would you be willing to come down to one of the sort of centre hubs, whatever you want to call it. Basically, it's there's a variety of hospitals that offer the treatments that Anthony Nolan specifically do. So what will happen is you'll go to one of those, and they'll take blood from you in most cases, or obviously sometimes it'll be a more invasive procedure where you'll be put under general anaesthetic, and they'll take some stem cell samples from you, and they use those obviously to further research and to help the person that you've matched with, because you've got the same sort of like blood credentials and stuff, so it won't be rejected. And that's basically how it works. It's quite complex, but that's basically how it works.
Is it reasonably similar to a transplant register type of thing? Was it a vaguely similar concept?
That's kind of what it is, yeah. But obviously it's really specific to people that live with either a blood cancer or a blood disorder. So it's not organs, it's blood. Yeah.
So you've just started. What have you done so far?
What have I done? What have I done with the charity?
Yeah, what have you done with Anthony Nolan so far? I know you've just started.
So obviously, I was asked to share my own story, and that consisted of me writing up a roughly 500 word piece, which they published on their website. They made a few sort of promotional flyers that went out to a few other charities, and people that are already registered. So they're on the stem cell transplant register, or people that are looking for a donor, a sort of like a case study story almost. So that was quite nice because obviously I got to share my own story whilst also encouraging other people who may have the same sort of thing to do the same. So that was nice. And then also I took part in a phone interview with one of the marketing officers, and she basically took my story and obviously shared it with local press. Obviously, it got to Sky News, as I'm sure we'll get onto later, and so it sort of got shared around, and that sort of thing is what I want to continue doing, because the more people that know that these disorders exist, obviously the better, because awareness is raised, and it means that funding will go up because people will donate to the charity, and then more research can be done, and obviously that's only a good thing, because it will mean that more lives can be saved and people don't get forgotten. So yeah.
Amazing. So that's what you've done so far, and we'll come on to the Sky News element of it. What are your plans as you wish to get? I assume you wish to get more involved with Anthony Nolan.
Absolutely.
Then what's your pathway forward?
So I'd really like to take part in. They have a helpline where people can ring in and sort of express concerns, how they're feeling, difficulties with their mental health, revolving the symptoms that you experience with a blood disorder or blood cancer. And I'd really like to volunteer for that helpline, because obviously it's something that you can do. I can do from home, because I am a busy student. It'd be really good, because I've had those experiences, and I always think, well, nobody can better sort of console or advise somebody that's struggling with something than somebody that's gone through a similar thing or the same thing. So that's really something that I'm looking into doing. I'm in conversation with them about that at the moment. But yeah, basically any way that I can contribute, whether it be social media posts, any kind of marketing, even if it was viable, I would really like to maybe take on some sort of support role for the charity. So obviously in a volunteer capacity, I'd really like to sort of speak with other patients in real life and sort of find out what it's like for them, and see where I can relate and help out with their difficulties.
Amazing. Yeah, empathy will always rule the day, I think, in situations like that.
Yeah, I agree.
You can give a much more valuable insight if it's something you've gone through.
Yeah, definitely.
And are they amenable? Are they open to you getting involved a lot more?
Absolutely. They've been really, really wonderful and very encouraging, and very grateful for every little bit every little bit of help that I've offered them with, in regards to supporting with my own story. And I'd love to contribute more wherever possible. They are very grateful for any support from anyone. Obviously not just me, any volunteers that get involved. So absolutely.
Fantastic. And as someone with a blood disorder yourself, are you able to donate the cells yourself, or would you be a recipient?
So interestingly, I am on the register. So I am signed up as somebody that could donate, which I did think was a little bit strange, but over time, red blood cells and iron count, obviously, it fluctuates. So it's the same sort of thing as like donating blood. You've got to think of whether it's viable for you at the time. But yeah, if the opportunity came to me, I absolutely would do it, because I know what it's like to live with a blood disorder, and it's like, if you can even just make life easier for one person that's living with one, you want to, because you know what it's like, and it's not nice. So yeah, absolutely, I would donate.
Plus, if you've got scientists and medical professionals who are trying to find a cure for these things, they need to have blood that has the disorder as well. So it would also then make sense for them to have you as someone whose blood is there that can be referred to in that sense.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good point, actually. I didn't think of that. Yeah. I suppose I'm good for a reference point. You know, this is somebody that lives with a blood disorder. You know, how can we improve this? How can we make it a little bit better? How can we make it more livable?
Exactly. That was my, I think like a science, you have the control group and the experimental group. At least you've got. Yeah, that's good. So move on to the Sky News / lockdown element of it. We've got to start from the lockdown element and work our way forward to get into Sky News. At the way back at the beginning of the COVID lockdown, so last March 2020, were you given a shielding letter?
So actually, no, I wasn't. I didn't go out and seek a shielding letter because I was obviously a student at sixth form college. So essentially that stopped, meaning I had nowhere else to go. So I did just stay inside. It never really came up to me, although looking back, I don't know why I didn't do that, because that would have been entirely open to me. No, I didn't seek a shielding letter, but I know that if I had done, I would have received one. So essentially I was at home for the lockdown period, and I didn't really go anywhere because my education, but that's the main part of where I was going at the time, obviously being a student, because that closed, I wasn't really going anywhere else. So even really things like shopping, like food shopping, like, no, I didn't really go anywhere. Pretty much just did stay in a house, and that really did continue, because I was just too scared, because I don't just live with anemia, I'm also asthmatic, so I couldn't afford to go out and catch COVID. It wouldn't have ended well for me, I don't think. So yeah, I really didn't want to, and all of the advice was sort of, to look after yourself, stay safe and stay inside. So that's what I did. But no, I didn't.
With your blood disorder, does that mean that you are immunocompromised?
Yeah, it does. So that's quite frightening in itself, because things like, what's an example? Like, I get the flu jab every year, which you'd be surprised how many people don't get the flu jab every year. It's most people. I've had that every year since, like, I've been allowed to have it, which is basically forever. So I have that every year to stop me from getting the flu. Because if I was to get the flu, I would be significantly more ill than other people, because obviously I am immunocompromised. So if you can imagine that, but it's COVID, so obviously far worse. Yeah, like that would just be horrendous. So yeah, I am definitely immunocompromised.
Yeah, the flu jab is no joke. Like, I work as a teacher, Sharne, so we're offered it every year. I'm primary school, so a lot of the time the children are vile, to be honest. There's no other way of putting it. They're just disgusting, and they're just disease harbours. So it comes to winter time, it's not the type of thing you want to be getting yourself knocked down by, if it can be avoided. So
agreed. That's so true. Yeah.
And then it sounds as though between that, you being immunocompromised and asthmatic, like, as you're saying, if you think of all the risk factors for COVID, I think you're ticking every box, really, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. I try not to sort of What did you say? Sorry.
So is it, yeah, you're ticking every box in terms of the risk
Yeah.
factors.
Well, I don't like to sort of. I always think that there's somebody that's got it worse, but when when you put it like that, yeah, yeah, every box is ticks.
So how long were you indoors for?
Oh God. So between the months of March and let's say beginning of August, I basically didn't go anywhere ever. When it came to August, the effects on my. What did you say? Sorry.
When it came to August, the Eat Out to Help Out start, was that, did that get you?
Right. Yeah, actually, interestingly, and I don't know why I fell for it, but one of my friends said to me, let's sort of go out for a meal, and I went. But looking back, I'm just thinking, why did I do that? Because obviously, looking following that, there was a massive surge in COVID. So yeah, that kind of shut me back inside for a bit. Slowly, gradually, a little bit after that, I did kind of stop popping up to places, but then it happened for a third time, and it just scared me to death again, like really quite. I'd probably say more intensely than the last two times. So between sort of late December and March time, again, I didn't go anywhere. So it's really been like a year of not going anywhere effectively, with a few gaps in the middle.
Yes, so England have had. I know you're slightly different to us, but you've had the 3 lockdowns because you had that big one in November as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, yeah, you didn't have that, did you?
We don't think we
right,
had that one, no.
Yeah, so that one was pointless. We should have just it was really unnecessary, because in my eyes it should have happened like a month, 2 months earlier, so that massive surge didn't happen. And also it effectively came too early, but then also too late, because it was sandwiched in between two big lockdowns that also came way after the time that they were needed. So yeah, I don't know, it's all been very badly timed and made very difficult for people like me who then can't go out and do stuff. So yeah.
So as you were saying, then you the third lockdown, then the one from this winter, that was the hardest, the most fearful one for you compared to the two before.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely, yes.
I think the numbers back that up as well. When you see the graph of the case numbers and the deaths, etc. That January and February was really, really, really dark days in terms of cases and deaths.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. Really, really high numbers, which was really scary.
So even as if we go back to last August, even as the restrictions started to ease off, what was your fear of going out?
I guess I just had some sort of thought at the back of my mind, this isn't over. All the sort of, rumours about second wave and stuff going around didn't help, but I don't know, I think I could just sort of feel it in my bones a little bit, that this isn't just going to go away without a vaccine. So yeah, I was right to be cautious. I think I've now had both my jabs, but yeah, it was not a good time.
I think without even going too political, letting people go away abroad last summer and then making all the uni students go to their new university towns, insanity. Why on earth would you do that? As you say, without a vaccine.
I know. Yeah, madness. But that's just government, I
suppose. So that's your lockdown experience. Then, how did that then tie into you writing the letter and then it being picked up by Sky News?
So obviously my lockdown experience, I think some people, well, probably people that don't have a long-term health condition, was mostly sort of, waiting for all things to reopen and sort of like, oh, when's it going to open again, and all that sort of stuff. Whereas for me, I was glad to be inside where I was safe, but it was very isolating. And you are made to feel very lonely when you live with something that most people don't live with. It's not something that you can really talk about in a group of people that don't know what it's like. So yeah, it was difficult. It wasn't a nice experience. The only good part for me was knowing that obviously I was safe inside, when outside was just a world of dangers. Obviously with COVID going around rife. So yeah, the winter lockdown, obviously this back end of last year, start of this year, was a lot more scary for me than the first lockdown, because for the first lockdown, I don't know, I think I just sort of thought, oh, like, you know, like big holiday. But then it kind of set in that no, you are majorly at risk, and if you go outside you could catch it and then you could be in big trouble. So yeah, that's set in pretty quickly. And definitely by the winter lockdown, it was sort of like, oh right, okay, like, you know, I need to be extra careful where I go, who comes near me, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I was definitely a lot more scared because I knew the bitter realities, obviously, come the winter one. So yeah.
When did you write your letter for Anthony Nolan?
So I wrote my letter. When was it now? June now. So I wrote the letter, I think it was the end of April, beginning of May. And obviously sent it through to them. And yeah, they picked it up very quickly.
And obviously the letter detailed your lockdown experience. Was that the type of thing they were asking for, or was that just your own, you just jotting down all your thoughts, 500 words worth of what your life was like?
They did ask for a little bit of that. I probably went a bit deeper into it than maybe some people did. They did kind of want to know what it had been like for people that had lived with a blood disorder throughout COVID. So I went pretty hard on that. But obviously I was also detailing what it's like to live with a blood disorder just in general, because I think it's important that people know that.
How did it then get to the point where Sky News were going to pick it up? When did you catch wind of that?
So I'd say maybe 2.5, 3 weeks maybe passed. They did say to me, you know, maybe a news team might want to pick this up, and I said, okay, that's fine. And then Anthony Nolan did contact me and say, like, Sky News are interested in this. And then the next thing I knew, they were at my door. So yeah, it was very quick, but they did. I was glad that they came, because obviously any awareness being raised for people living with blood disorders and blood cancers is the main thing.
So what happens when Sky News rock up to your house in Stoke-on-Trent?
So what happened was they got here. They essentially just sat me down at the sort of tables and chairs in the back garden and just started asking me questions about what it had been like, asked me questions about me, got some sort of video cuts of me like doing stuff that they could use in the future, like drinking tea and being in the garden and stuff. It was quite a quick process, really, but yeah, it was a good experience.
Good. And how did it feel when you seen all that on the TV? It's like you're looking at yourself and your own story on the television. What's that like?
It's weird. It's really strange. Yeah. It's even weirder when like your friends have got Sky News on and they like send a picture of you on the telly. It's like, that is just strange. Like, yeah, it was really weird. But obviously it was nice because I knew that I was raising awareness for a really important issue. But yeah, it's really strange seeing yourself on the telly, especially when you don't know what the future looks like, and somebody just brings it to you in the morning and it's like, oh, look at this on news, and it's like, oh, that's what I look like on the telly. Brilliant. So yeah, it's weird, but I'd recommend it to anybody that's got something they want to speak out about on, because it's always good to raise awareness about things you care about.
Amazing. There's not very many better places to get exposure for it than on one of the national broadcasters, so well done. Well deserved as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Did they get you to read out your own letter, or was it just a case of them coming and getting bits and bobs and then they would summarise it and mash it together?
Yeah, that's it basically. No, they didn't get me to read out anything that had already been sort of chopped up and put on different bits of advertising and stuff. They did just want me speaking my own words pretty much, because they were asking questions that might not have been covered in my letter. So sort of they did go sort of into my life, me as a person, how this has affected sort of my family, my lifestyle, that sort of stuff. So it was a little bit more, I don't know, personal, because obviously it was literally me speaking. So yeah.
Good. And do you think them coming to your house was a less sort of nerve-wracking experience for you than, say, you having to go to one of their studios?
Yeah, I think so, because obviously in your own back garden, it's a bit more relaxed, because it's your ground there on your turf in a way. So yeah, it's a bit it was a bit more calm. I think if I'd have had to go to the studio, I would have been a bit nervous in the car journey there. But no, I the whole thing was quite sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Enjoyable, I suppose. Really, it wasn't like scary or anything. I did just enjoy the experience, speaking out about something that I feel quite strongly about. And the man that did the feature, Fraser and Maud, he took a real interest into what it's like to live with a condition like this, which is always helpful when if you feel like people care.
Good. That's good. That's an interesting little sort of in for you, getting somebody like that on side, as you say.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing.
Have you had any good or bad feedback about the letter and about your feature?
I have actually. I did a few people messaging me on, well, obviously you, when there was a few other people that messaged me on Facebook saying, you know, hi, like, thanks for speaking out about this, like my son or my daughter or my niece or nephew or me or like a parent or whatever has got this as well, or something similar, and like telling me about how they live like good lives and stuff, and like not to be worried about it, because like there's a, you know, like you have a bright future ahead, and like things have come a long way in, like, you know, sort of the last 50 years and stuff, of people with blood disorders. So yeah, that was quite reassuring and nice to hear as well. But the positive feedback was really nice. Obviously, like the video was posted on Sky News' Facebook. There were lots of really nice comments on there as well.
Good, amazing. And if you were allowed to change anything about your letter or about the experience, would you change anything at all?
Yeah, I didn't think I went hard enough on the government. Yeah, I don't think that. I mean, it's a bit unusual for me because this is like my whole thing, but I don't know why. I think it was because I was so focused on getting the message out. But I don't think, like, if I was to do it again, I'd probably say about how I don't think the government have done enough to support people already living with long-term health conditions in a time where there's this huge, scary pandemic sweeping the globe. Because at the end of the day, yeah, COVID is massive and really important, that obviously it gets taken note of, and it has been. But people that already live with things like this face these issues every single day. And for those to just be swept under the carpet isn't good enough.
So, if Sharne was in charge, then if you were the government, what would you have done to make sure people like you would have been more looked after?
Yeah, I mean, I would have opened up a dialogue between, obviously, a select committee at the government, and people that experience day-to-day life with a long-term health condition, not just blood disorders, but anyone that faces something that isn't going to go away, a chronic illness, you know, something like fibromyalgia or diabetes or endometriosis, anything like that. Because I know that there's thousands of people living with those conditions up and down the country. I'd open up a conversation between us and them, essentially, and get you know, as many big names into that select committee from the cabinet, from the government, you know, obviously the Conservative Party who currently run our government, so that they can see what it is like for people who live with these illnesses to then have a huge pandemic thrust on top of them and told deal with this as well. Because I think when you actually see real people who deal with these things daily in front of you, when you hear their voices, hear them tell their stories, you realise that they're not just numbers on a page, they're real human beings with lives and dreams and hopes and ideas and all that sort of stuff. And I think sometimes that's what it takes for people with the power, the authority, to actually make a difference. So yeah, that's probably what I'd do. I'd look for the initiative to seek something bigger and better for people that have got a long-term health condition.
That's an excellent answer. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
If there was someone else, so say there was someone else in a similar position to yourself who had written out a letter and there was a news agency contacted them, was interested in sharing their story, what would your advice be to that person who has been contacted? Would you tell them to go for it, and what would you say to them? How should they approach the situation?
Yeah, so I absolutely would tell them to go for it, because obviously raising, as I've said, raising awareness for anything you care about is the most important thing. So I absolutely would tell them to go for it if they wanted to. I'd always encourage and advise that. But what I would say is to always make sure that when you're telling people about what it's like to live with these issues, be brutally honest. Don't sort of water it down so that, it might make it look like it's not as bad as it is. Because I know that people have a habit of doing that. So it's like, it's fine. It's not fine. Living with something like this is hard. And I think the more that the general public know that, the more the authority know that, the more people who can change things know that. It's that sort of stuff turns into money that, fundraising cash that then gets given to charities like Anthony Nolan that can put it into research to help change lives that have been affected by this sort of thing. Getting it on the news, it's great. It gets attention and it gets people talking, and it gets people thinking, let's do something for this charity, which is only ever a good thing. So yeah, if somebody asks you to talk about your experiences, be honest, tell them what it is like. If you have to, be really raw with things, talk about your really personal experiences if you can, because it's those sorts of things that make people realise that it's not a walk in the park.
Another good answer, well done. You're good at this, you're a natural.
Thank you.
Right, that's us. I really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Sharne. Thank you for being so honest about something that's really difficult and really personal. Big up to you, and big up to Anthony Nolan as well. All the best and stay safe when everything reopens. Thank you, and I'll see you later on.
And you, thank you. Brill, thanks.
And there you have it. Thank you so much to Sharne for coming on and sharing her experience so far with aplastic anemia and the challenges it presents to sufferers of the condition and other blood disorders. If you would like to donate stem cells to help in the fight against blood disorders, you can join the Anthony Nolan Register by going to www.anthonynolan.org/loss4words. This link is also in the show notes. The usual bits and pieces then to see you out. The best way to keep up to date with future episodes of Loss for Words is to follow using the handle @LossForWordsPod on both Twitter and Instagram. To support the show, hit the subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts, and for Apple users, a 5-star review in your podcast app means the world. If you like what you hear, then tell someone. Word of mouth is also really powerful in helping us to grow. That's all from me for this week. I am your host Jason, and this has been Aplastic Anaemia with Sharne Wood. I hope to see you back next time for another episode of the Loss for Words podcast.